Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another interview of the Art of Sherlock Holmes. Today it's an artist interview, and we have Vicki Siegel on the other end of the line in West Palm. Hi, Vicki.
Hi, Steve. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastically well, especially with the fact that the sun is shining here in London. So it feels like a summer's day.
Beautiful. Here as well, I live on a lake. My studio is on a lake, and there are wading birds and lots of sun. Beautiful day.
Fantastic, because in the first few interviews that I did, that's why I'm wearing my Lucky West Palm t-shirt, because that was about as close as I got to any kind of sunshine in the first few interviews. We had rain, fog one day as well, which is nice for the atmosphere, but not so good for in terms of topping up your tan. I noticed that there's a piece of art on the wall behind you there. You're in your studio?
Right, I'm in my studio, which I just moved this past weekend, so things are a bit of a mess, but I have behind me Thrive, which is a piece that has many of the different inspirations for my work, and as you can see, it's very colorful. I love color.
That was one of the things that really jumped out at me when I was putting together your profile for today, was your use of color is fantastic. How did you get into art in the first place?
Well, I would say I started making art as a child, but when I was 15, we moved from New York to Chicago. We moved around quite a bit, and I started going down to the Art Institute in Chicago for drawing classes. And if you paid for your, drawing class, you could go into the museum for free. So I used to go to the museum every Saturday morning, and I was particularly attracted to the abstract expressionist pieces that they had there, as well as other artists. And I would sit and look at those pieces and feel that there was something really very important there, maybe something spiritual. So that's how I fell in love with art.
Fantastic. And if we jump straight into art, this is a absolutely beautiful piece. I can imagine this on my wall, and I can imagine this kind of engaging you every time you look at it. It's just such a beautiful way the face has been captured. Tell us a bit about this.
Yeah, so I'm a mixed media painter, and I mix painting and mixed media artist. I mix painting and photography together. I've been doing that for about 12 years. So this particular piece, which is called Believe, is first my work with a model. This is a woman that I work with quite often. And as all of my work, I start layering images, one on top of the other. And as I begin to do that, layering the human being, the figure, color, nature forms, perhaps some shadows, it becomes more and more abstract. And I would say that this is a pretty good example of that.
Fantastic. And we jump on to the next piece. This one's a bit more unrecognizable from a human face perspective. The last one, the face was a big part of it. This one for me was something else is going on here. Tell us a bit about that.
Okay. So this is called Ode to Bob, and as you had asked me before, a little bit about artists that might have inspired me. So Robert Rauschenberg was an inspiration for my work, and if you look closely, there's a figure, a dancer in it, that actually comes from one of his pieces. It's become so abstract that you can't really see it closely, but when you're in front of the piece, you can tell that there's a figure there. And again, the figure, I take my photographs everywhere that I go. I have my camera with me. And then when I come back to the studio and I begin to paint using the images that I've created photographically as my inspiration, this has some Japanese lanterns, and it's very abstract piece. Again, color, figure. This piece is called Transform, and while I was out shooting, I happened to come across this woman. I often will stop people on the street and ask them if I can photograph them. I live in South Florida, where we have an unbelievable amount of strange and freaky plant forms. So those often find their way into my work. And from those strange plant forms, I might take the color, the shadow, something about it that inspires me. So this incorporates both the figure and the plant forms.
Yeah, this particular piece, I just kept coming back to this one. There's just for me, just something just quite magical about it. The layer where you've got the background and the very vibrant red coming forward, for me, this one speaks to me. It's really lovely.
That's wonderful. What you can't see is that the actual painting has shimmering paint on it, iridescent paint. So as you move, the paint subtly changes color on the canvas as you move around the room. So it's that you're missing from the photograph.
Yeah, I think that's one of the challenges, obviously, we have with art in such an interview where we're presenting it on the screen, is you miss those subtle elements to it. So we encourage all of the people watching the interviews to seek out the art it's in its original form, and to come and see your art in galleries, because you miss those elements to it. This is stronger faces in this one again, and two people this time. So tell us about this piece.
Right, I was at a fashion show and I came upon two of the women, and again I asked them if they would model for me, and they agreed. And then I'm inspired by pattern, by color, so I've incorporated both patterns and obviously very bright color within this. But I think that it forms a portrait of a friendship, and gives you each one a very unique portrait of an individual, or in this case, two individuals, and maybe a human relationship, which is what we all strive for in art, is something that's a little bit extra, something that touches our heart, that can talk about love or peace or the environment, whatever. So that's, in this case, I would say perhaps love and color and a relationship between two people.
That's fantastic. And talking about lifting something and a theme, that brings us neatly onto the Art of Sherlock Holmes. So this project was conceived and is being curated by Phil Growick. So Phil's West Palm Beach resident now, but a New York boy before that. And he's 2 times Sherlock Holmes novelist in his own right. And that's how he came up with this amazing idea of giving stories to artists and have them create a new piece of art from that. And here's a little glimpse. We've been very, very secretive around the art that's in the book. There's 15 artists and 15 stories, and this is a small glimpse of the piece of art that you created. So Vicki, tell us what it was like to take a Sherlock Holmes story and then have that as the inspiration for a piece.
Well, I have a 20-year career in advertising before I turned myself back to painting full time. But so it was actually very normal for me. I'm very honored that Phil gave me one of his stories to illustrate, and I loved it, 2 + 2, and I just loved it. And so I did give him a couple of rough ideas. I gave him a few sketches, just like we did in the advertising world. And I was a creative director, and I think he was as well. And then, we talked about the themes, and I managed to get in, I think, all of the themes into the piece that are presented within his story, 2 + 2.
He has a unique position, as obviously he's the curator of this project, but as you mentioned, one of his stories is actually in the book. So he's the only author that knows who the artist is, and is the only author that's seen the art. That we've been keeping everything else secret, so the authors don't know yet. Some of them.
I hope I didn't let on a big secret now.
Well, no. The interesting thing is that since we've been doing these interviews, there are a few of the pieces of art that have very, very strong elements of the theme in the art. So we did a wonderful interview with Bruce Helander, and Bruce is a collage artist, and no matter what we did with his piece, we even showed a tiny little bit of it, but you can see so many different elements of the story in the collage that I'm sure the author is sitting there saying, "Oh, that's mine." So I think it's starting to leak out, but we're very keen to keep the mystery going for a little bit longer in terms of who's got what art. But I encourage people watching the interview to watch some of the interviews with the authors as well, because overwhelmingly the authors feel quite honoured and humbled to have their words turned into art. because it's not something they're used to. For an author, typically, there's an interpretation from the story, of course, and people create visual images, but for someone to have a piece of art from their work is pretty unique, and it's very rare.
Yeah, definitely. Was a great experience about it, working with the author.
I'm glad you enjoyed that. And we talked about the fact that there's 15 artists and 15 authors, and we're bringing all of the art together. The book comes out officially on the 25th of May. We'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. But the art will all be coming together at a high-end gallery called the Anne Norton Sculpture Gardens in West Palm Beach, because this first edition is all artists based around the West Palm Beach area. And they'll be coming together on the 9th of May. So will you be there for the launch, Vicki?
Yes, I'll be there. Looking forward to that launch. And the Anne Norton Sculpture Gardens is a lovely location, and very excited to have the launch happen there.
Fantastic. And this is the first in what we hope will be a long-running series. So we have the Art of Sherlock Holmes USA edition coming in the fall. In fact, I'm interviewing a couple of artists for that later today. We have then the global edition, first global edition, which will be coming in early 2020. So we have an artist already, I think, from Japan and from Mexico and from the US and from Europe as well. So long may it continue. It's been wonderful to talk to you, Vicki. And I hope
meeting you, Steve.
Yeah, and I'm very jealous about the fact that you've probably got a slightly better view out of your window than I have, looking out onto the lake. But have a wonderful day, and I look forward to meeting up with you in May.
Me too. I look forward to meeting you in person.